Okay, so I just started up the stream for you guys. I'm also gonna be recording this weekend. That's why it took me a little bit longer to set up. Uh, but again, if you guys don't know how this works, this is the Sunday watch list. So I'm just gonna be going over some thoughts I have going into this week. This week's kind of special because we do have the election on Tuesday. I'm going to be a lot more focused on just, getting through this week unscathed, sort of what the election means, like coming up, and we could go over some possible scenarios too. So yeah, you guys can, if you're in voice, you could hop in the stream. If you're watching this on YouTube, yeah, let's get started either way. So just to start going through our little watch list here. First, we have Baidu, and this was on the list last week. Same sort of plan as well. We're still waiting for this range to break. And again, either way, wherever we break this range, probably going to see some either boosting or bleeding in that direction. I'm thinking we consolidate a bit more. So if we pull up the hourly, we're forming a nice little wedge here, just if you could eyeball it. I think we just keep consolidating there. Eventually we get a nice little trend break to the upside, and then we finally break this top level, which will let us hit all-time highs again. So that's definitely on watch coming up. CGC, something we actually added to last week. Just a nice little wedge break up here. Came down, retested, and held. So I'm thinking we see a nice little boost back up, at least to these like 2044 levels. As we sort of build up, we could, scale our position appropriately. Futsu, this is another one from last week. We called it more of a safe bet. And as you can see, we failed below, and we closed below this little support line here. So I just wanted to throw this on just to sort of show, like, okay, now the play is more invalidated. I'm really waiting for a test of this lower support here to consider it for longs again. And I'm also going to move our line to include the little spike that it had within the pattern, since it didn't really break above. It really just failed back into our little wedge here. Love, again, just looking at airline exposure in general, it looks like we probably hug this top line up here and probably ride it up and get this nice little, I guess cup and handle pattern would be a decent sort of way to look at it. But this handle is pretty deep, so if we do break above, again, it's more about just breaking this level than any sort of specific technical pattern. Next we have NEM. What we have here is just, again, nice little wedge. A lot of names we did see just sort of start to dip last week, again, just because of all the stimulus news that we had going on, all the election news that was happening. There was just too much uncertainty in the market, so sellers took control over most tickers, and that sort of led to a lot of these dips here. We saw it again in Futsu. We broke, and then we just sort of dipped back down here, and we see the same thing in NEM. Again, we're pushing up, and then we just fall, and then we start pushing up again. So I'm thinking we knock off this little top trend line here, and then start squeezing between support and the trend line here. And then after we sort of break up, we could play the breakout, or we could get in early, try to time the breakout. Either way, I just want to see broad market develop, and then NEM is definitely a name that I could keep looking at. Next on the list is Pins. Pins is here just mainly to say that we were able to hit our 60 to 70 price target within a couple months, actually, of us sizing into it. I got in a little bit lower down here, around, I think my average is 2360, and then we really started to have more fun with it and play with it once we got this nice break above here, started trading in this range. Pins has been one of my favorite things to trade, and I don't think we've had a red pins trade yet, which is pretty cool. We're going to try to keep that going. As for future trades, pins is sort of in this gap here, so probably just going to let that develop more. I don't really feel too comfortable playing it at this range, so again, we'll just sort of let that develop a little bit more and watch from the side. And once it sort of gets more structure, that's when we can start to size back into it, start to look for more opportunities. The Qs again, I could just talk about the Qs in SPY right now just because there's not too much to see. Really the thing I want to point out is on ES. So Qs again, cup and handle, but this handle is actually diving pretty low. Again, there's another support line here. You could just see from bounces here and here. So there's a good chance that we do start to see some strength. Probably not on Monday. Monday, I just don't see any reason for buyers to be sort of stepping in, especially when the election is the next day. I don't think anything that institutions are sizing into is that time sensitive. So buying volume, or volume in general, in my opinion, is going to be pretty low on Monday. We're just going to sort of, again, sit from the sidelines, take some day trades if we need, and I'll go over some potential day trades as well. But yeah, as far as the QQQ and SPY go, this isn't really a cup and handle pattern anymore because our handle is just too long. We're probably looking more at a retest of these lows here. Or this last, I guess, week or so is sort of the market pricing in the election results. So obviously it looks like the market believes that Biden is going to win. And if Biden does end up winning, that just might allow us to base here before coming back up to these highs here. Alright, back to individual names. We could look at TLT for a quick second too. Again, we just have the same wedge pattern. We saw it come up. We boost right here. Hopefully some of you caught that. That was a very nice trade for these nice little gap up days. And then as we sort of knocked off the top, we're sitting at support again going into the week, which is exactly where we were last weekend. So I just think it's pretty interesting to see we're actually in the exact same spot we were last week, and it's sort of likely, not even likely, it's more expected to see again it hold this support line, get a nice little boost up, and once again, TLT, when TLT is doing good, the market's typically not doing as well. And the last thing on our list is TME. We're already up, what, like 50% on these. Very nice trade, and we got traced and viral in this as well, so again, I'm pretty confident in this. Mainly playing the earnings run up here. I'm probably not holding this one through earnings, so this is probably our last week in the trade. If we get a nice break above, I'll be very happy with it. But if we sort of consolidate a bit more here, that's going to be kind of annoying just because, again, earnings in 10 days. We don't really have too much room for it to sort of give it to move. So I'm really, again, looking for that break above. And just to sort of talk about things in general, Activision, we've been in this for a minute. We saw it sort of just be here and then flush on earnings. So this is just a nice little one. We held support down here almost to the penny. So that's something to keep an eye out on. Just the fact that, yes, we did start bleeding, but it is showing some semblance of strength. And two, it's just a good example of how you can't really win them all. I was very confident in this setup. Really liked this setup, but sometimes the markets just don't agree, and sometimes you just end up being wrong. Which happens with everyone, and I think the thing that makes someone a good trader is not that they're right all the time or that they have a higher win rate, it's that they know they can offset their losses with wins, and it sort of doesn't affect them as much. So we took the loss on our Activision contracts, and we're moving on to the next play. And I feel like that's how you guys should start to view your trades as well. Just to pull up ES real quick. So we got some levels here. The level that's probably the most important right now is this 3211 level. I'll recolor it so you can see. This level is probably one of the most important. I do think that we just do go back and retest it just because of how important the level is. But another thing to sort of keep note is this 3227 level. Again, I'll add a line. Just to make it easier. 32, that's 34. So if we put one at 32.27, we see we sort of held down over here, broke above, failed, range traded, held again here, and held again here on Thursday. So what we're sort of looking at here, on Friday, excuse me. So what we're sort of looking at here is a level that's been tested many times in the recent past. The 32.11 level is probably more significant as a whole, but for right now, the 32.27 level seems to be respected more by futures. So if we hold this level, which is above our very important level, I'm kind of okay with taking more long trades, sort of for swing trades, short swing trades, or for day trades. Just it shows that we're having some sort of health still in the market, and the same thing with NQ at 11K. It sort of it sort of shows us that we're not entirely in a bear market, even though uncertainty is high, even though sellers are stepping in and buyers are sort of taking a break. It's not all over. So that's what I'm sort of looking at with there. So if we start basing here, start holding this level, I'm completely okay with taking some longs, especially in equity. Equity is probably the move coming up for this week. Again, unless we're doing some day trades. But yeah, that's what I'm sort of looking at for this week. For those of you in the live stream, do you guys have anything you guys want to talk about? You guys can type it in chat and send me a DM or unmute your mic. I'm good with anything. Can you go over more what you mean by de-risking before election? Yes. Okay, so I was talking with this person over the weekend. I said it's important to like de-risk before the election, depending on your age group. This is something I sort of talked about multiple times as like we sort of were leading up to this week. As you get older, your risk tolerance should be lower. That's just proper investing practices. If you're on the say older side, say 40s, 50s, you're getting closer to retirement, you do not want to be taking on as much risk as someone who's in their 20s. If you're in your 20s, you could take on a lot of risk for that potential of high reward. If you maybe lose on a trade or the risk starts getting to you a little bit, you have time, you have the element of time to sort of build back up your account or your nest egg, your retirement, whatever you want to call it. But people who are older, people who don't really have that element of time on their side for when they retire, they really should not be taking on any sort of risk as you sort of get closer to that age. And that's why you'll see a lot of portfolios sort of transition to mostly stocks, to more stocks and bonds combined, to stocks, bonds, and cash combined. And you'll see that as people get older. And if you're sort of unfamiliar with that concept, you feel free to hit my DMs. I could give a very, very quick explanation. But it's just about diversification, taking risk off, and sort of allowing your account to still grow, but maybe grow at a slower rate because your need for that money is going to be much more, I guess, soon than a 20-something-year-old's need for that money. If Trump wins, how do you think the market will react? I know we already talked about Biden. Yeah, so whichever like president wins, it also comes with the caveat of the other elections that are going on. So, but just in general, I think whoever wins will sort of drive price action a decent bit. So again, I said a 4 to 6% move either way. So if Biden wins, 4 to 6% move to the downside. If Trump wins, 4 to 6% move to the upside. If we treat last week as Biden's win sort of being priced into the market, that sort of changes our numbers a bit. Our Trump number would go up to say like 8%, and our Biden number would go down to more 3 or lower 4%. I don't think it's really worth trying to trade too much through election though. We have some swings, we have some alerts going, but I'm sort of okay with those. I'm completely fine with the risk that we're taking on. But again, these aren't any crazy plays. These aren't sized into, really. They're more just starters that we're holding through. TME is probably my biggest position, and we already scaled that one down, so that'll just sort of give you guys some perspective on what I'm sort of going into this with. But yeah, Mel Farah did a solid breakdown of like the sort of scenarios you can see with Trump winning the election, Republicans keeping the Senate. Give that a read. I don't entirely agree with everything in there, but it's definitely for people who aren't really following politics too much. It's a great way to sort of get yourself acquainted. Just to talk about real quick, like probably the number one thing I would change is he talks about scenario 3 where he says like a Democratic sweep would cause a short-term pullback but lead to a good stimulus package. That would be good for the market. I'm like, on the surface that's true. Like a Democratic sweep would provide a stimulus package. I just don't think the stimulus package is enough to sort of combat what we're really looking at with a Democratic sweep, which is sort of a big hit to the financial services industry. Anyone that's sort of read through the tax plan sort of understands that Biden and Kamala have this sort of, I guess, shared vision of the financial services industry. So I do think their victory does kind of harm that sector. And I think we'll see that in the stock, reflected in the stock market. Does that mean we can't grow? Absolutely not. I think whoever wins, we will still see all-time highs within their administration. Just probably the next 6 months to a year is going to be especially weird, not only because of a new president, but also because we're sort of feeling these ripple effects from COVID, from sort of shutting the entire economy down. And as we start to reopen it, we're going to see some of these consequences we didn't really consider start to come back. So, for example, as we're sort of getting into the winter months, it's getting colder. Restaurants can't really have outdoor dining without investing more money into equipment. Now, small business restaurants don't really have excess cash to be spending on that. I know for a fact, well, I know that the federal government is giving them loans and is giving them assistance, but I know for a fact a couple local businesses that have said that they may need to completely close down just because of the effects from coronavirus, even though we are sort of into a more, not normal, but it's been adapted at least. People have adapted and we're sort of in this decent groove here. But even though people or individuals might start to get used to this lifestyle, the businesses are still hurting. So that would definitely be interesting to see, excuse me. And again, we'll still find our opportunities no matter what happens. Just sit patient, give it some time to sort of get some more structure and develop. And once we have that, that's when we could start shooting for those higher win rates, higher percentage months. I sort of said that in the P&L post or the trade recap post real quick. But the market's not going anywhere, I promise. Don't get frustrated, don't get impatient just because we're sort of sitting on the sidelines right now. Okay. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Are you still in SLV? Yes, I'm still in SLV. Those are for January, so again, I'm completely fine holding that. Got this nice little wedge. Short broke, but we're sort of building up here. Held the support here. Could build back up with time, and that's exactly what we have. And yeah, I'll always say when I'm selling out of something. I don't think I've really led you guys astray with that. What do you think of PayPal? They have earnings this week, right? 1 second, sorry. Yeah, they have earnings. Technically speaking, looks solid. I can tell you that just from a quick look at the daily chart. It actually looks a lot like broad market, which is entirely fine. I would like to see some divergence from broad market with earnings. Of course, the upside, but again, it really depends on how they report. I'm not playing them. I don't do enough so I haven't done enough research into what their expectations are, their main sources of revenue, how that might have been affected. If you have done that research, feel free to send it my way. I'll give it a look. But I'm definitely not taking any ER lotto for it or anything. It just seems like a complete gamble, in my opinion. I do like PayPal as a company, though, if that's what you're asking. Peloton? What are they doing? Oh, I mentioned Peloton. Yes. So we got this nice little base forming up here that we unfortunately failed. If we held this base, I probably would have gone long on Peloton on Monday. But we did fail, so I kind of want to give it some time. Again, yeah, we do have earnings coming up, and that's great. But I don't really see any need for us to play it. A lot of Peloton will just be based on sort of what expectations are in relation to what reality is. And it's not that Peloton hasn't been successful this quarter, it's really how successful. And that's why it's sort of hard to gauge whether they're going to beat or miss on their earnings. Because if you look at this growth is absolutely insane. So it's no real secret that Peloton's doing good. But if you look at previous earnings, like, there's no real way to try to predict these trades. Like, this actually just goes completely crazy sometimes. That's why Peloton's kind of on my do not trade list, just because of how fast it moves. Like, I'll trade it intraday, but as far as swings, it goes up and down pretty frequently. Of course, we had this, like, nice, very, very nice run-up. But again, that just leads to sort of analysts maybe considering what's the proper valuation, what numbers are we expecting to sort of justify this stock price. So yeah, again, I'm just going to wait for the earnings on that. Really depends what they do with expectations. Technically, it's not really at an entry level, so again, just going to leave that. Let that sort of develop as we run into earnings. I'd say in the scenario that we do play it is we come back up and sort of consolidate at this base. But again, there's not really enough time between now and earnings to do that, so I think we just let it go this week and check it out once we have more information. I do like Peloton, sort of, as an overall company again, but a lot of their future performance is sort of dictated by how they do right now, so letting that go a bit. I do not have a position in Peloton, though. I do have a position in PayPal. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Equity positions, just to clarify. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Not bad. Alright, it looks like we're all good, so I'm going to end off our little live stream here. Again, thank you guys so much for coming. I'll be posting the charts in our stock analysis channel, of course, but if you guys have any questions on anything, feel free to hit me up in chat or in DMs. If you're watching this on the YouTube video, feel free to check the description to figure out how you join our chat room and sort of get access to answers to any questions you might have as this week progresses. So again, thank you guys so much for coming out, and have a great rest of your night.